I don't want some worn-out old woman hanging around while I'm pregnant, Melissa declared, her eyes fixed on her glowing phone screen, not even sparing me a glance. My son, Daniel, nodded in quiet agreement, and in that moment, it felt as if my heart splintered into 1,000 shards. You need to look for another place to stay, Mom, he said casually, as though he were commenting on the weather instead of telling his 64-year-old mother she was no longer welcome in her own family's home. If you're watching this video, make sure to subscribe and tell me where you're tuning in from. 6 months earlier, I had sold my lovely 3-bedroom house to help Daniel and Melissa with their down payment. It's just temporary, Mom, Daniel had promised with that boyish grin I'd always trusted. Until we find stability. Stability, it turned out, meant discarding me the second I was inconvenient. For half a year I'd been living in their converted garage, paying rent, cooking meals, scrubbing clothes, all while they piled up their savings. I had even put my own hands to work, laying floors and wiring lights, skills I had learned over 3 decades helping my late husband with endless home projects. Melissa's pregnancy had been rough, and I thought my presence was a blessing. I believed I was helping, but I was only being used. And where exactly am I supposed to go? I asked, keeping my voice steady. Finally, Melissa looked up, her eyes as icy as her tone. That's not really our issue, Clara. We need the space for the nursery. Daniel shifted, avoiding my gaze. There are senior communities, Mom. Nice ones. You'd meet people your age. In his mind, 64 was already ancient. Time to be shelved away like some outdated appliance. I had raised him alone after his father abandoned us, worked 2 jobs, skipped meals, and gave everything I had to ensure he had opportunities. And now this was my reward, being thrown aside as if I no longer mattered. But when you spend a lifetime underestimated, you learn to keep your aces hidden. And I had cards neither of them knew existed. Fine, I said with calm finality. I'll be out by the weekend. Melissa smirked, triumphant. Daniel exhaled in relief. Neither noticed the flicker of satisfaction that tugged at my lips as I walked back toward the garage. 3 days later, I signed a lease for a quaint apartment in the heart of downtown. It wasn't lavish, but it was mine. When the moving truck pulled up, their shocked expressions were priceless. You already found a place? Daniel asked, genuine disbelief in his voice. It's amazing what one can do when motivated, I replied smoothly. The truth? I had been preparing my escape ever since Melissa began treating me like her unpaid servant. The apartment wasn't merely a backup, it was an upgrade. And the financial steps I'd been quietly arranging? Those would soon become Daniel and Melissa's problem, not mine. The sun blazed bright on moving day, filling me with a sense of promise. As I oversaw the movers lifting my modest belongings, I caught Melissa peering from the kitchen window, her expression twisted into something suspiciously close to regret. Too late, darling. Daniel approached as I slid into my car. Mom, maybe we acted too fast. If you want to stay. No, thank you, I interrupted sweetly. You made yourself perfectly clear. I wouldn't dream of being a burden. The guilt was already creeping into his features. Good. Let it consume him. My new apartment was everything their garage wasn't. Airy, spotless, and mine. No more walking on eggshells, no more hearing Melissa mock me to her friends as though I were invisible. As I unpacked my books, my phone buzzed. Clara Reynolds? This is Anna Lopez from Sterling Properties. I just wanted to confirm that your references checked out flawlessly. Mr. Sterling is excited to bring you on as our new property manager. I sank into my favorite chair, a smile spreading across my face. Wonderful. When should I begin inspections? Tomorrow if you're free. He's especially interested in a property on Willow Street. 1824 Willow Street. My chest fluttered. 1824 Willow Street. Daniel and Melissa's address. Oh yes, I said, voice calm and certain. I'm very familiar with that home. After ending the call, I poured myself a glass of wine and raised it toward my reflection. Here's to fresh beginnings. 4 weeks I had been corresponding with William Sterling, a developer intent on reviving entire neighborhoods. He bought homes in Daniel's area, renovated them into luxury spaces, and flipped them for a hefty profit. When I mentioned my situation, his attention to their address had been instant. That's a prime location, he'd said. Perfect for our next project. I hadn't lied outright, but I had painted a clear picture. A cramped garage conversion, a house begging for repairs, Owners stretched thin financially. William had rewarded my initiative with a consulting role. Property inspections, acquisitions, flexible hours, and solid pay. Tonight I would sleep soundly. Tomorrow I would step into my new career. And within a week, Daniel and Melissa would discover the consequences of discarding someone who had shielded them from hardships they never even saw coming. The next morning I met William at a cafe just 3 blocks from their house. He was exactly as I had imagined. Mid-40s, sharp suit, confidence radiating from his every gesture. "Clara, it's a pleasure to meet you face to face," he greeted, shaking my hand firmly. "Your insight into this neighborhood is exactly what I need." We talked for an hour. His vision was clear: transform the area into a thriving, upscale district. Property values would skyrocket. Great for sellers, devastating for anyone who couldn't keep pace with the rising taxes. "Now about 1824 Willow Street," William said, showing me photos and records on his tablet. "You mentioned the owners might be considering a sale?" I took a sip of coffee, careful with my words. "They're young, first-time owners. From what I've observed, they're stretched thin financially." It wasn't untrue. Melissa's spending habits and Daniel's indulgences had them living paycheck to paycheck. And as for the garage conversion, definitely not done legally. William jotted notes. "Perfect. I'll make them a cash offer today. Quick close." Families in their situation usually appreciate flexibility. 2 hours later, I was walking up the familiar driveway of 1824 Willow Street, clipboard in hand, right behind William. Through the window, Melissa's startled face appeared, pale with confusion. Daniel answered, his work shirt wrinkled, exhaustion written across his face. "Can I help you?" William extended his card. "Mr. Reynolds, William Sterling from Sterling Properties. And this is Clara, my property assessment consultant." Daniel blinked, recognition warring with disbelief. His gaze locked on me, stunned. "We'd like to discuss a business opportunity," William said smoothly. "May we come in?" This was it, the moment I had been waiting for. I kept my expression professional, but inside I was savoring the countdown to their downfall. "Mom," Daniel whispered, his voice cracking. "Hello, Daniel," I said evenly. "Mr. Sterling has an interesting proposal." Melissa shuffled into view, her rounded belly making her waddle slightly. "What's happening?" Then she saw me. The color drained from her face. "Why is she here?" William's sharp eyes darted between us. "You know one another?" "She's my mother-in-law," Melissa said tightly. I corrected, my tone soft but sharp as glass. "I was told to leave, remember? Mr. Sterling offered me work and I happened to mention this property." The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush them. Daniel opened his mouth but no words came out. Melissa clutched Daniel's arm so tightly her fingers turned pale. William cleared his throat smoothly. "Why don't we sit and discuss this properly?" They led us into the living room, the very same space where Melissa had called me worthless less than a week ago. I eased into a chair I'd never once been invited to use while living here, while William spread a neat stack of documents across their coffee table. "I'll be direct," William said. "I'm offering you $450,000 in cash for this property, closing within 30 days. Melissa's sharp inhale filled the room. They'd bought the house for $380,000 barely a year and a half ago, with my help of course. "That's very generous," Daniel muttered, his words stumbling over themselves. "But we're not interested in selling." "I understand," William replied with a polite nod. "But I should let you know, this entire block has been approved for redevelopment. The city has already greenlit new sewage lines, upgraded wiring, fiber optics, the works. Construction will be significant." I watched as realization dawned on their faces. Noise, dust, torn-up streets, restricted access. Months of disruption. "And then there's compliance," William added, his tone casual but firm. "Our initial review suggests some homes here might have unpermitted renovations." Daniel's throat moved as he swallowed hard. "Garage conversions mostly," William clarified. "If the city uncovers unpermitted work during permit approvals, they'll order full inspections on surrounding homes." Melissa's voice quivered. "How long do we have to decide?" "Construction begins in 6 weeks," William said, glancing at his planner. "After that, the environment here will be unpleasant. But the offer remains open until Friday." 5 days. That was all they had to either scrape together tens of thousands to legitimize their garage conversion, or walk away with a comfortable profit. As we rose to leave, William handed Daniel his business card. Think it over. Clara can answer questions about our development schedule. On their porch, I allowed myself a small, quiet smile. Take care, both of you, I said with forced warmth. I truly hope it all works out. My phone began buzzing before I even reached my car. Daniel's name lit up the screen. I let it ring. Then Melissa tried. Straight to voicemail. Then Daniel again. By the third call, I was home in my apartment, tea in hand. I finally answered. Mom, what the hell is going on? Daniel's voice cracked with panic. Language, Daniel, I chided. And I thought I'd made myself clear. I'm no longer your concern. This isn't funny. That man is threatening to tear apart our neighborhood. Mr. Sterling, I corrected, is improving it. Property values will rise considerably. Excellent news for homeowners who want to sell. We don't want to sell. We just bought this place. With my $40,000 of retirement money, I reminded him coolly. Funds I'll never see again. Silence pressed on the line. Mom, I know we hurt you. Hurt me. A bitter laugh escaped me. Hurt implies an accident. No, Daniel, you made a choice. You threw me out when I was no longer useful. That wasn't a slip, it was deliberate. Melissa was emotional, Mom. The pregnancy. Don't you dare excuse her cruelty as hormones, I snapped. She showed me exactly who she is. And you chose her over me. That's fine. But choices have consequences. So this is revenge. You're forcing us out of our house. I exhaled slowly, suddenly weary. Daniel, the city already targeted your block for redevelopment. William Sterling was already circling. All I did was point out the issues in your home that made it attractive to him. You could have warned us. Warned you. My voice cut like glass. The way you warned me before you branded me useless and cast me aside? Another silence followed, heavier this time. Then what do you want? He asked finally. Nothing, I said, realizing it was true. I wanted respect. To be treated as family, not as baggage. But it's too late now. Mom, please. Melissa's pregnant. We need stability. Stability was her responsibility before she turned me into the enemy. Don't plead with me now. I ended the call. An hour later, a frantic pounding rattled my door. Peering through the peephole, I saw Melissa, mascara-streaked, eyes swollen, her face blotchy from crying. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. Please, she begged, her words tumbling out. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said those things. I was stressed. I took it out on you. But this is too much. You can't destroy our lives over one cruel moment. I leaned against the frame, studying her like an insect under glass. 6 months ago, she'd made my life a daily misery, cutting me out of dinners, ignoring me at holidays, whispering to her friends that I was in the way. One cruel moment? I repeated, voice low. I was wrong, she sobbed. We're family. No, I said quietly. Family doesn't discard each other. You made sure I knew I wasn't family. I was just the woman whose money bought your house. We'll pay you back, she said desperately. With what? I asked coldly. You're drowning in bills and about to add a child to the mix. Even if you wanted to repay me, you couldn't. Melissa broke completely, her body trembling. What do you want? Tell me how to fix this. The words I had been waiting for. You want to know how to fix it? I asked. It can't be fixed. Some bells can't be unrung. Her expression shifted wildly, fear, anger, despair, before she settled on rage. So that's it? You'll ruin us because your feelings were hurt. My feelings? I repeated slowly. Melissa, you spat in my face, convinced my son to abandon me, and mocked me in my own home. I gave up everything to help you, and you repaid me with cruelty. You're only sorry now because you need something from me. She cradled her stomach, and for the briefest moment, pity tugged at me. Almost. Look, I continued. William Sterling's offer is fair. More than fair. You'll make money, buy somewhere else, start fresh. We don't want somewhere else. We want our home. Then you should have thought about that before you alienated the one person protecting you from exactly this. Her eyes narrowed. Protecting us? What do you mean? I smiled thinly. Do you think it was chance William appeared right after I moved out? Do you think it's coincidence he suddenly wanted this street? The blood drained from her face. William and I have been speaking for weeks. He's a good man, very interested in development, and I've been pointing him toward properties that could use his attention. You planned this, she whispered. I planned to protect my family, I corrected. Until my family made it clear they didn't want me. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and blanched. Daniel's on his way. Good, I said calmly. It's time we had a proper conversation. 10 minutes later, Daniel stormed inside, his face flushed. Mom, Chelsea said you admitted this was all your scheme. I admitted nothing, I said evenly. I explained that I'm consulting with Mr. Sterling. Your house interested him. That's not the same as plotting. That's exactly the same. Daniel snapped. No, son. Creating the problem would be one thing. I merely stopped shielding you from it. He stared baffled. What does that even mean? I walked to the kitchen and retrieved a folder from the drawer. Inside were papers I'd prayed I wouldn't need. 6 weeks ago, the city notified homeowners here that infrastructure plans were moving forward. All properties needed to prove compliance before permits could be finalized. I handed him the letter. This is the notice. His face went pale as he read. We never got this, he muttered. Because it was mailed to the previous owners, I explained. They passed it to their realtor who forwarded it to me, since I was still listed as down payment contributor on your loan paperwork. Melissa snatched the paper from his hands. You've had this for 3 months and didn't tell us? I've been handling it for 6 weeks, I corrected. Remember in February when I asked about the permits for the garage? When I offered to help you sort out the paperwork? Daniel's jaw dropped. You told me it was routine city upkeep, Daniel said, so I wouldn't stress during Melissa's pregnancy. I nodded once. Quietly, I'd already lined up a trusted contractor to legalize everything. Permits, inspections, the whole lot without making a fuss. It would have run about $8,000 and taken a couple of weeks start to finish. The silence in my small apartment pressed against the walls. Melissa spoke first. But you never actually did it. A weary smile tugged at my mouth. That was going to be my parting gift. Leave you with everything legit, stamped and ready when the inspector came. I had the crew scheduled for next week. Daniel sank into my couch like the strings holding him upright had been cut. After you pushed me out, after you showed me exactly where I ranked, I said softly. William was always on his way. The redevelopment was always coming. I just intended to make sure you were prepared. The weight of what they'd thrown away settled over them like wet wool. Melissa began to cry again, but this time it was the raw, quiet kind you hear when someone finally understands the size of their mistake. Can you still fix it? Daniel asked, barely above a whisper. I looked at my son, the baby I raised alone, the man who broke his mother's heart, and felt something inside me give way for good. No, I said gently. That window has closed. They left hollow-eyed, finally seeing the bill for their cruelty. And as the door shut, I told myself that some lessons only sink in when they hurt. Morning came with 3 missed calls from Daniel and a single text from Melissa. Please. I deleted it, brewed coffee, and settled into the quiet as the situation unfolded exactly as I knew it would. By noon, William phoned. Claire, a quick update. The owners on Willow Street asked for a meeting. They're inquiring about payment plans to get compliant. I stirred honey into my tea, tasting the irony. Payment plans. Seems they can't front the $8,000, he said. They asked if we'd accept installments. And what did you tell them? That the project timeline can't absorb long delays. The city wants verification in 2 weeks or they'll red tag the block during construction. Good, I said. And their reaction? The young man got emotional, William replied neutrally. Talked about how family should help family in a crisis. Family helps family when the care goes both ways, I said evenly. In this case, they made their position on mutual obligations very clear. I understand, he said. They've asked for the weekend to decide. When the call ended, I stood at the window and watched the city I'd loved for 4 decades breathe under a perfect spring sky. Ideal weather for fresh starts. My phone buzzed again, Daniel this time. Mom, we need to talk face to face, please. I stared at the screen before typing. You had 6 months to talk face to face. You chose not to. His reply flashed back instantly. I'm coming over. I won't be home. Of course I stayed home. I just had no interest in pretending there was anything left to say. 20 minutes later, the knocking began. I ignored it. It became pounding. Mom, I know you're in there. Your car's in the lot. I turned up the television and opened my book. Eventually the pounding stopped. Through the peephole I saw Daniel sink to the floor in the hallway. He sat there for 3 hours. When he finally left, a folded page slid under my door. I waited 10 minutes, then picked it up. Mom, I know I can't undo what we did. I know sorry isn't enough, but Melissa is terrified about the baby and we have no one else. You're the strongest person I know. You always fix things. Please fix this. Daniel. Strongest person he knew. Funny how strength is dismissed until it's needed. I folded the note and placed it in the drawer with the other things I'd decided to keep and never revisit. Friday arrived with an unseasonable steady rain that turned the world dull and defeated. I was rearranging my bookshelf when an unknown number lit my phone. This is Clara Reynolds. Ms. Reynolds, this is Rachel Ortiz, mortgage officer with First National. Your son, Daniel Reynolds, listed you as an emergency contact. We have a situation. I eased into a chair. What kind of situation? Mr. Reynolds requested a home equity line to cover unexpected expenses, she said. However, our assessment flagged issues that must be resolved before we can extend additional credit. What issues? Unpermitted structural changes. Our appraiser noted a garage conversion without documentation. To move forward, the property needs to be brought into compliance. I almost smiled. The bank had uncovered the illegal conversion on its own. Perfect timing. I see. And why call me? Your son said you could assist with the compliance costs, she explained. He mentioned you have experience managing renovations. I do have experience, I said carefully. What exactly did Daniel tell you? He said his mother worked in construction management and had already offered to coordinate permits. He sounded confident you would take charge. Construction management. I'd spent 30 years as a secretary at an insurance firm, but apparently Daniel would say anything if it got him what he wanted. Ms. Ortiz, there's been a misunderstanding. I'm not in a position to get involved with that project. A pause stretched out. Oh. Mr. Reynolds was adamant you'd already committed. Mr. Reynolds was mistaken. After I ended the call, I sat in the quiet and let the truth settle. Daniel had told his lender I was going to pay. He didn't ask, he assumed. Even now, after everything, I was still his fix-it plan. The phone rang again. Daniel. Mom, Rachel said you refused to help with the permits. I refused nothing, I replied. I corrected her misunderstanding. You told me you had the contractor, the 8,000, all of it lined up. I had it lined up when I lived in your home and believed I still belonged to your family. That plan ended when you pushed me out. This is insane, he burst out. You're destroying us over hurt feelings. Something inside me snapped. Hurt feelings. I said, my voice low and dangerous. Daniel, I sold my house, my home, to help you buy yours. I slept in a garage and paid you rent. I cooked, cleaned, and tiptoed around your wife while she treated me like a nuisance. When I needed support after giving up everything, you made me feel like dead weight. When I needed a family, you chose her comfort over my dignity. And now that you need something, suddenly I'm family again. The line went so quiet I thought he'd dropped the call. What do you want from us? He asked finally, small and defeated. I want you to solve your own problems for once, I said. Saturday morning brought unexpected visitors. Through the peephole I saw Melissa's parents, Peter and Diane Caldwell. I hadn't seen them since the wedding 2 years back. I opened the door, genuinely curious. Peter. Diane. What brings you here? Diane's eyes were uneasy, but Peter got right to it. Clara, we need to talk about what's happening with Daniel and Melissa. I poured coffee and listened as they explained Melissa had called them sobbing, begging for money to fix permit issues on the house. She's 8 months along, Diane said. This stress isn't good for her or the baby. Peter leaned in. Clara, we understand there's been a family rift, but surely we can sort this out like adults. What exactly did Melissa tell you? I asked. They traded looks. She said you moved out after an argument about privacy, Diane said gently. That you were upset about not being included in baby plans. I set my cup down carefully. Is that all? She also said you were hurt because they wanted to use the garage for the nursery instead of having you live there permanently, Peter added. Interesting. In Melissa's story, I was a thin-skinned old woman who couldn't handle boundaries. Peter, Diane, I said evenly, let me tell you what actually happened. I walked to my kitchen drawer and pulled out the folder stuffed with city notices. 3 months ago I got these, I said, spreading the papers across the table. I laid out everything. The timeline, the violations, the contractors I'd arranged, the money I was willing to spend, and the exact words Melissa had hurled at me when she threw me out. Diane's face turned pale as parchment. Peter's jaw clenched hard enough to grind stone. She called you worthless? Diane whispered. Among other things. Peter pushed back from his chair, fists tight. That girl, we raised her better than this. I'm sure you did, I said calmly. But comfort makes some people careless. They start to believe kindness is theirs to exploit. Clara, Diane asked gently, what would it take to fix this? Not just the house, but the family. It was a fair question, asked by people who truly seemed to want what was right. Diane, some things can't be patched up, I said softly. Melissa showed me who she was when she thought there'd be no consequences. And Daniel chose her side instead of defending his mother. That isn't a lapse, it's character. Peter gave a grim nod. So what happens now? Now, I said evenly, they live with the consequences of their choices. They'll sell the house to William, pocket a profit and move. The baby will be fine. But Melissa will have learned that actions carry weight, and Daniel will have learned his mother isn't an endless well of sacrifice. As they stood to leave, Peter paused at the door. For what it's worth, Clara, you're doing the right thing. And we'll be having a serious talk with our daughter. After they left, I sat in the silence of my apartment, and for the first time in months, peace settled in my chest like a soft blanket. But Monday morning shattered that calm. Clara, William said on the phone, his tone sharp. We've got a problem. I put down my crossword. What kind of problem? City planning just called. Someone filed a complaint accusing us of intimidating residents into selling. My blood chilled. Who filed it? Peter Caldwell. Seems he used to sit on the city council. He's got connections. Melissa's father. Of course. I should have seen it coming. William, I can explain. They're launching an investigation, he cut in. They'll be questioning everyone tied to acquisitions. That includes you. My throat tightened. What sort of investigation? They want to see if we pushed homeowners unfairly. If they find anything shady, the entire project could be shut down. And since you're listed as a consultant, they'll want to know why you flagged your son's address and how you're connected to the owners. When he hung up, I sat motionless, the weight of it pressing down. 2 hours later, the phone rang again. Mrs. Reynolds? This is Detective Sarah Lynn with the City Planning Compliance Office. We'd like to interview you about your consulting work with Sterling Properties. Of course, I said smoothly. When? Today if possible. It's urgent. The interview took place in a sterile room at City Hall. Detective Lynn was younger than I expected. Sharp eyes, calm voice, the kind that pulled confessions out of people who never planned to give them. Mrs. Reynolds, explain your role with Sterling Properties. I outlined my consulting work, my knowledge of the neighborhood, my task of identifying potential investments, and your connection to Daniel and Melissa Reynolds at 1824 Willow Street. Daniel is my son. Melissa is his wife. Her pen stilled. So you recommended your own son's property for acquisition? I identified it as a property that would benefit from development, I said. After you were asked to leave that same home, she pressed. So they already knew. Detective, are you aware of the violations at that address? She flipped a page. Unpermitted garage conversion. Yes. I spent 6 weeks trying to help Daniel resolve it. Lined up contractors, secured permits, even planned to pay out of my own pocket. All before Sterling entered the picture. But you didn't finish the work. I was asked to leave before I could. And then you contacted Sterling? No, I corrected her firmly. Sterling contacted me. They were buying into the neighborhood regardless. I simply told the truth about conditions. Detective Lynn studied me with cool eyes. Some might call this revenge. I met her gaze head-on. And some might call my son's actions elder financial abuse. I gave factual information, facts already documented by the city. If that helped a developer make informed choices, that's not revenge. That's consulting. 2 more hours of questions followed. When it was done, Detective Lin walked me to the door. Off the record, she said quietly. Family disputes rarely end clean. Off the record, I replied. Sometimes people must learn that choices have consequences, even when those people are your own blood. 3 days later, William called again. Clara, the investigation is over. No fraud, no intimidation, no misconduct. Everything checks out. The city ruled your consulting was legitimate. Relief surged through me. And the complaint? Withdrawn. Peter Caldwell phoned this morning to apologize for wasting their time. Apparently, he had a very illuminating conversation with Melissa. That afternoon, my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Daniel and Melissa, both looking as if they'd aged 10 years in a week. I opened the door but didn't step aside. Mom, Daniel said, voice quiet, broken. We owe you an apology. Several, Melissa added, her whisper raw. I waited. My parents told us everything, Melissa continued. How you tried to protect us. How you had the contractors lined up. And we, her voice cracked. We threw it all away, Daniel finished. We threw you away. I looked at my son. Really looked. He was thinner, dark circles under his eyes, grief carved into his face. Yes, I said simply. You did. Can you forgive us? Melissa asked, tears gathering. It was the question I dreaded most because I wasn't sure. I can forgive you, I said slowly. But I cannot forget. You showed me exactly who you are when you think cruelty is safe. We want to make it right, Daniel begged. How? They exchanged helpless glances. We don't know, Melissa admitted. You can't fix it, I said softly. But you can learn. Daniel swallowed. Does that mean, is there any chance we can be family again? I weighed the question. They had revealed their ugliest sides, but now they were standing here with genuine remorse. Maybe, I said at last. But it would be a different kind of family. One built on respect, not convenience. One where my worth isn't measured by usefulness. Hope flickered in Daniel's eyes. Can you do that? I asked. Melissa, next time stress gets to you, will you take it out on me again? Daniel, next time you must choose between your wife's comfort and your mother's dignity, what will you choose? Their mouths opened then closed. They knew these weren't rhetorical questions. Think on it, I said. And call me only when you have real answers. 2 weeks later, they sold to Sterling for $450,000. After clearing debts and fees, they walked away with $60,000 in profit and bought a smaller house they could actually afford. Melissa gave birth to a healthy baby girl. They named her Clara. It took 6 months before we sat down for dinner again. Not out of punishment, but because it took that long to relearn how to be family, equals, not users and used. Today, a year later, we are smaller but stronger. Melissa speaks to me with respect now because she knows the cost of disrespect. Daniel stands on his own because he understands I won't always rescue him. And me, I learned the most valuable lesson of all. Family is not about what you're willing to endure. It's about what you insist upon. The baby's first word was, Gamma. She stretched her arms toward me across her high chair and I wept tears of joy. Because I knew this little girl would grow up in a family that had finally learned how to cherish one another. Sometimes the best revenge is refusing to ever be anyone's victim again. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and share your own story in the comments. Your voice matters.